Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners and viewers, coast to coast, the Gulf to Canada, and around the globe. Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio. So I have been on the road here for about a week and a half, and I have traveled several thousand miles, slapping ink on books. First at the State Fair in Southeast Idaho at Blackfoot, which is great. Great seeing all you folks down there. Got a great booth set up. Might be some pictures in this video that the producers will put up. We shall see. And I am now signing books at the Clay County Fair in Iowa, which is also terrific. And hello, all you great folks and readers in Iowa. And in the course of traveling and loading books and unloading books, and signing books and explaining to people why book 5 and 6 aren't out, which has to do with the Yellowstone situation going on the ranch, which everybody's very curious about. I have not gotten a show out, even though I did my very best to get one out here over the last week. So I think it's been about 10 days. My apologies. The one good thing is that there is a whole bunch of stuff that has occurred in the last 10 days, which I would not have been able to talk to you in depth about, which I'm going to do tonight. And yes, it's tonight. It's like midnight tonight, because that's the only time I have. So this show is going to be about several disturbing economic trends, disturbing world trends, and a whole bunch of, shall we say, simmer rapidly becoming boil on the international, both economic, military, and, shall we say, competitive front. And the theme of this show, and it has been really, if you've been listening to me the last 3 or 4 shows, is change. Change is in the air, folks. I've brought you the show on the cycles, the fourth turning, the confluence of all these cycles. The last time 400 years ago, what happened at that time? History is the touchstone of the past, and the touchstone of the past is the guidepost to the future. And I don't bring you these shows to get you nervous, for clickbait, for all that nonsense, because personally I don't care. There could be 1 million people listening to me. There could be 1 person listening to me. It gives me a chance to sort things out in my mind, but it gives me a chance to, whoever is listening or wants to listen, to associate them with some thoughts that they should be having, or that they should at least be contemplating, and some changes which are coming our way. In fact, they are underway right now, in process. They are irreversible. In fact, the quote I'm going to bring you for this show is from a gentleman by the name of Drucker, a really, really, really famous investor, hedge fund manager, management expert. And this is a quote from a book of his called Managing in Turbulent Times. It was published in 1980, which, if you remember correctly, was turbulent times. Think about Iran. Oh, the same name as is today. Iran, inflation, etc., etc. Same deal, different time. And the quote is, in turbulent times, managers cannot assume that tomorrow will be an extension of today. How true. And you could substitute the word families or individuals for the word managers, because it's all the same. I'm going to bring you a second quote, which kind of ties into that, also from Drucker. This is from Managing in Turbulent Times, his book in 1980. Tomorrow is being made today, irrevocably in most cases, unquote. Think about those two quotes. Think about them in the context of life, in the context of the times, the turbulent times that we are living in, and think about them in terms of your personal life, the financial, the property, the freedoms, and the safety of you and your family. Because he who understands is a long way toward he or she who is prepared. You're not going to you're not going to change the change, but you can certainly manage your shall we say interaction and impact from the the change which is coming at us all. All right, so and I hate wearing these earmuffs, but there's no other way to do it if my voice is going to be at all legible here while on the road without my normal setup. So let's start off with some economics. Well, actually, let's start off with a rant story, shall we? Because everybody's clamoring to know more. So all I'm going to tell you is I can't really go into the details of this Yellowstone situation, but trust me, the Duttons would be jealous of what's going on. And over time, you'll learn the whole story. For a whole bunch of reasons, I can't go into it right now. I will tell you that it involves treachery, it involves money, it involves power, it involves land, and it involves four-dimensional chess played by people on the opposite side of the board who are, shall we say, less than scrupulous and open in their actions, desires, and plans. And that's all I'm going to tell you about the rant story this time. I will give you a little day-to-day rant story stuff. I brought you the rant story of the ranch lieutenant who decided that after 2 years, he said, of being sober, he decided that his love affair with the bottle was more important than his remaining sober. It turns out that he stole a truck. Oh, yes, he did. No, not a ranch truck, but a truck which I, like an idiot, because I trust people, helped him with buying. Basically, I paid the guy that he was buying the truck from $250 a week. And then this guy took a bill of sale, apparently altered it, got a title, and skipped. Anyway, we will get all that rectified. Trust me, I don't go away. It's just not my nature. I just simply do not go away. But I'll bring you more on that little tidbit also. It's really, you know, this is quite the soap opera, isn't it? I mean, unintentional as it may be. Anyway, let's talk about some larger picture items, shall we? Not just the drama going on in Wyoming. First of all, some economic data came out here just over the last week or so. Did you know that the oil companies, the big oil companies, and the smaller ones, particularly in the shale fields, Northeast Texas, and to some extent in the Rockies, are laying off workers, and the rig count is down. And that is because there is, for now, this will not be the case in the future, you wait and see, there is, for now, a glut of oil on the market and in storage. And along with that, we have now found that the BLS, remember the folks that have been lying to us for many years about economic statistics? I've brought you many shows on this, right? These are the folks who revised jobs down 800,000 over the course of a year in the last year and 1.2 million during Obama's third term. It now comes out that they were overstating jobs, hold on to your bippy, by approximately 73,000, that's 73,000 jobs, each and every month for the previous 12 months, overstating jobs. That is just terrific. To give you an idea, you need to kind of remain on a constant field in the United States, 150,000 new jobs, job creation every month. Well, it turns out we were nowhere near that. And to make matters worse, those statistics have been used by the Fed, and that's a whole nother topic, uh, have been used by the Fed to contrive fiscal policy, monetary policy, and interest rate policy. So the Fed, who is always backwards looking anyway, which does you no good if you're trying to take steps to alleviate, help, assist, maintain an economy in the future, think about that. It's like looking in your rearview mirror when you're crossing an intersection in a car. Not too good. Uh, the Fed has been relying not only on backwards numbers behind them, but numbers behind them that are significantly, materially, and probably purposefully incorrect. No wonder we have a mess going on at the Federal Reserve. Okay. Office delinquency. This is on commercial buildings. I've been warning you about this for more than a year. All right. And this is the softening, the extreme softening of the commercial market throughout the United States. I mean, there's almost no market that is not impacted by this in some respects. I told you about the buildings in Denver, I think the last show. I've told you about the buildings in Toronto and the buildings in several of the big cities back east where insurance companies who were investors literally sold out their positions of hundreds of millions of dollars for 5 or 10 or 15 million just to get out of a really bad deal that's gone south. It seems that office delinquencies, along, by the way, with commercial delinquencies, which includes multifamily, are now at 11.7%. Guess what? The last time delinquency, and this is just getting started, the last time delinquencies in commercial real estate on mortgage loans, their mortgage loans, they were that high was 2008. We all know what was going on then, right? The great financial crisis. It's compounded by the fact, folks, that on the multifamily part of the commercial market, guess who is backing most of the loans? Our old friends, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Remember them from back there in the 2008 mortgage crisis when basically the financial system almost melted down. In fact, it did melt down. It was just kind of Humpty Dumpty put back on the wall. And Humpty Dumpty is now about to fall again. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are now starting to munch on lots and lots and lots of bad multifamily loans because that market is collapsing. Great. By the way, did you know that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will be bailed out by the taxpayers? That's you and me. This is terrific. Another little wealth transfer here from the middle class to the elites. Gotta love it. Banks. The banks that fund most of these commercial mortgages are smaller community banks and mid-size regional banks. So be looking for, shall we say, some problems perhaps coming our way in the banking system. Okay, I mean, keep your ears to the track. And then by the way, I have several great videos on this show. They're under family safety, rat-a-tat-tat, and under the audio bar. They'll be loaded, I think, in conjunction with the show going up. I really urge you, these are experts in the field. It covers much of what I'm talking about. There's a number of them. I've carefully gone through them. I've listened. I've culled them. I really, really suggest that you listen at your leisure to these various experts about these topics in much more detail and much more literate presentation than I, your cowboy, is giving you. One of the things which you need to do is you need to think about how all these big picture events, these big pictures kind of slow motion, white swan evolutions, how they're going to affect you. Are they going to affect your job, your income, your savings, your investments, your property, your family, your safety? Think about this stuff. Don't just listen to, oh, the commercial loan thing is really bad and that could affect banks. How is that going to affect you, folks? And in one of these videos, there's more information on what's called a bail-in. I've warned you about this. This was something that our friend Barry Obama stuck in the TARP bills way back there in 2008, 9, 10, etc. And this is when a bank, instead of paying you back your deposits with that FDIC insurance, which has in its account a fraction, and when I say fraction, I mean a fraction of the total deposits in the United States it's supposed to be insuring. They just take your money, that's right, your money in your savings account and your checking account, and they issue you stock, capital stock in the bank, which is failing that they're taking over. That's called a bail-in, and you don't have anything to say about it. Be thinking about this stuff, folks. Remember, as Drucker said, tomorrow is being made today irrevocably in most cases. Okay, Israel. Let's talk a little international stuff here, right? I mean, you talk about a soap opera here in Wyoming. Well, let's talk about a soap opera on the planet Earth. First of all, Israel attacked Hamas in Qatar. Qatar is not that you can trust any of the Arab countries, but it's a quasi-ally and kind of an arbiter for Mideast disputes, a quasi-ally of the West. And Israel, apparently without the United States knowing, who knows, attacked Hamas installations, or shall we say retreats, in Qatar. This has created quite a controversy. In addition, it's rumored that Israel is gearing up for another attack of some type on Iran. And Russia is rushing all sorts of defensive missiles, et cetera, to Iran. And now there's a rumor that Iran may just say, you know, we're not going to sit here and take another punch. We're going to punch first, which means they would punch first against not only Israel, but based on what Iran itself says, all the American bases in the Mideast. Terrific. Then we have Nepal. Have you heard about this? Like a huge revolution going on in Nepal. People in the street burning down the presidential palace, apparently with the president's wife inside. I don't know if she escaped or not. So Nepal is going, should we say, spiraling down into dust. In France, Macron, he's such a nerd. He and Gavin Newsom and Trudy Fruity up there in Canada. I mean, these guys are like, I don't want to tell you what I really think. Why don't we just say they're the poster children for woke POSs? How's that? All right. Macron, his government has now been basically failed. It's been failed by the people. His vote of confidence in Parliament, his confidence level is now 15% in the French Parliament, which means there is no French government. It's going to have new elections, new reforms, you name it. And interestingly enough, because, you know, when empires die and an order that's been established by elites is under threat, they try and distract you, you know, kind of like the old Roman breaded circuses deal, the Colosseums and the gladiators. Well, it seems that there is now, and I've read this several places, there is now edicts going out from French authorities to French hospitals and medical establishments to prepare for mass casualty events next year, which just so happens to coincide with these morons over there in NATO and the total nihilistic morons in the European Union, Brussels. engaging in their fantasy that they can attack Russia, have a war with Russia, and win. Wow. Like, hello. Why don't you ask Napoleon how that worked out? How about asking Hitler how that worked out? How about asking the Huns how that worked out? How about asking about 5 or 10 empires going back 4,000 years how having a war with Russia worked out? It didn't work out too well in any of those cases, and it's going to be even worse this time. Then we have the Ukraine situation. Russia is grinding out their war of attrition, and they're winning, and they're going to win, and you can't stop it. It is what it is, okay? And China is making sure Russia keeps the West, and the United States particularly, engaged in Ukraine. There's no way Russia's going to end this war until China says it's okay, you can end the war. I've brought you this thought for 6 months. I don't hear anybody else saying it, but it's so obvious. It's painfully obvious. Then we have India. Now, India was really one of America's last great hopes in terms of maintaining global stability, some type of hegemony over world affairs and financial affairs. The United States and Europe and Australia and Canada, etc., is no match for the BRICS countries, not even in population. That's 1 billion, that is right, the West, against 7 or 7.5 billion over there on the BRICS side of things. I mean, I don't need to tell you how all this comes out, do I? Not to mention that you have the foremost nuclear power in the world, that is Russia, the foremost in terms of size and competency in terms of size, military in the world, China, and now because we decided to slap tariffs on India, but this is really, listen, I love Donald Trump. I love what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's going to get it done, but I respect the man for giving it a shot, right? Fortune favors the bold. Where we were headed was irreversible. Where we might be headed, given his rather bold plans, tariffs, etc., is at least gives us a chance. But now we have a whole bunch of things happening. He is getting bad advice at some levels, and for him to slap tariffs on India, because India is buying Russian oil, which it needs, right? India is a big economy. It's 1.6 billion people. Along with China, 1.4 billion people, it and China are literally almost 40 to 45% of the world's population. And India is an economic and a coming economic powerhouse. And we managed to piss them off by slapping tariffs on Russian oil going to India, when we have learned over the last 4 years that tariffs on Russia do absolutely zero, nada. Russia has a pretty damn good economy, in fact, better than ours. Not that it doesn't have problems, but it has weathered the West's purposeful economic storm, including theft of 300 billion of its assets, which really started this whole de-dollarization thing, much to our detriment, and I think was done intentionally to have that effect. And India has now been driven into the arms of China, just like we drove Russia into the arms of China. Did you know Russia asked to join NATO in the early 1990s? Russia could have been on our side. We are natural allies with Russia against China. In any event, the whole thing is, when you get elites who are concerned only about themselves, and they really think their poo-poo doesn't stink, and they're the smartest living things since lobsters crawled on the earth, bad things happen. And basically, you're seeing the fruits of that mislabor of the last 30 years play out right now, right? Remember Drucker's quote, Tomorrow is being made today irrevocably in most cases. Yes, absolutely. And then we have the whole blow up with Venezuela. Now, I happen to like Trump's idea of using the U.S. military to go after and crush the cartels. The cartels are inherently evil. Their insidious tentacles stretch everywhere. They have corrupted a lot of the southern states, the southwestern states' governments. Take a look at the governor of Arizona in terms of that. I've brought you that story, and I like that. But he's also imposing tariffs against Brazil. And he's also putting a bounty, I told you about this last show, $50 million on the head of Maduro, the dictator in Venezuela, who, by the way, deserves a bounty twice that much. The point is that the Monroe Doctrine, which Trump is trying to establish, in other words, American dominance and the use of the entire hemisphere as defense, it goes way back. The Monroe Doctrine is more than a century old, and it's a great doctrine. But it's being fractured by some of the policies which are being implemented. And I don't mean with Venezuela, I mean with Brazil. And you are driving Brazil and Venezuela, who was headed there anyway, they're no friends of the United States, into the arms of Russia and China. So these key chunks of geography, chunks of humanity, chunks of resources, and chunks of economic markets to sell to or buy from, India, Venezuela, Brazil. These folks are being alienated. I guess in the case of Venezuela, you can't alienate somebody who is an alien to begin with. Nonetheless, you understand what I'm trying to say. We're kind of rocking our own boat, if you will. And then, of course, the whole thing is being assisted by, quite purposely, the communist left in the United States. And by the way, the left is communist in the United States, the vast majority of the left. And they've brought lawsuits against the tariffs. And the tariffs, as I've explained to you in previous shows, are a great idea if they can be pulled off quickly with a minimum of discomfort and a minimum of supply chain disruption. That means doing them quickly, not being delayed. And the tariffs bring in huge revenues to the government, which decreases deficits. There's problems with the tariffs too, but that's really something for another show. In terms of what the tariffs can do, they can correct at least a significant portion of the deficit. They can offer incentives to bring jobs back to the United States and manufacturing back to the United States. They can do all sorts of things. Well, the left sued Trump saying tariffs were illegal. I don't see where they're illegal in the Constitution. I don't see where they're illegal under federal law. But they did get an appeals court. I believe it was the far left, appointed by Obama, D.C. appeals court, to side with them and say that tariffs are illegal. Maybe the ones up to 15% are okay, but anything over that, no, that's illegal. And that's going post haste to the Supreme Court. I want you to understand something here. If the Supreme Court sides with the appeals court, this is a friggin' disaster for Trump's plans for this country, for our economy, and for our deficit, and on many other levels, and in terms of our international prestige and power. Okay. Basically, it blunts the point of the spear of Trump's whole plan to try and right this economy and right the wrongs in this economy and this country. It will damage his plan in terms of delay, because his plan will likely only work if it's implemented swiftly. And any delay is detrimental to the plan and therefore the country and therefore you and I, which of course the left-wing elites really don't care about, in fact, detest. And it will drive up the deficit. In fact, we may have to repay tens, if not hundreds, of billions of tariffs already taken in from the tariffs that were put out there, which the appeals court are now saying retroactively were illegal. So it's not only going to affect the plan to lower the deficit by bringing in tariffs, it's going to reverse the deficit because we'll have to pay back tariffs which were illegal. This is really a big mess, guys. And if you combine that with what's going on with the India problems with tariffs and Brazil and Venezuela, etc., you got a whole bunch of, shall we say, little cyclones converging into a big potential tornado. Over the last week, the BRICS nations met. Modi from India, Putin from Russia, Xi from China. They were chummy, chummy, chummy. You ought to see some of the videos on their meetings. India was playing the middle of the road. They were helping the West and the United States, and they were helping China. There's some bad blood between China and India, which goes back to their borders and a whole bunch of history I will not go into right now. But let me tell you, it seems that India has made the leap from the West to the BRICS in about 1 nanosecond here. I mean, all you got to do is look at the chum, chum, chum and the laugh, laugh, laugh between those three leaders on tape. I don't think it was affected at all. I think it was genuine. Then we have a huge military parade as a part of this get-together last week in Beijing. And that military parade was to send a message because it had not all, but virtually all of the new military goodies that the Red Chinese have been concocting while we've been playing games with, gay pride and other nonsense here, woke policies, DEI, etc. The rest of the world's been moving forward while we've been here picking our noses over social nonsense. Anyway, one of the things which I caught out of Xi's speech, very important, think about this. It was basically a speech which invited the United States to join with them, but it was also a speech which warned what would happen if the United States did not join them in a multipolar world. And one of the phrases in there was, this is a time now for action. Okay? And what kind of action would China be thinking about? I'll let you wonder about that. They also announced the formation of 2 banks, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization and kind of BRICS organization, which I think eventually will come together. And those 2 banks, never mind their names, it doesn't matter. But basically, they're being set up to rival the West's World Bank and the West's Bank of International Settlements. In other words, the BRICS nation, now that India has been pushed into their arms, are ready to go on their own banking system, and therefore, in my opinion, they're ready to go on their alternative currency, which will likely be backed by gold. This is going to be a very interesting 3 to 9 months, folks. Change is inevitable. Cycles are converging. Remember, tomorrow is being made today, irrevocably in most cases. Be alert. Think outside the box. All right. I'm going to finish up with a little note of humor, kind of. So while all this stuff is going on in the world, and I just touched the basics. I mean, please watch the videos on the ontherightsideradio.com website, ontherightsideradio.com. Wealth of information, all the backup to all the stuff I'm bringing you. At the Southeast Idaho book signing, down the way from us, thank God, was the Democratic booth, right? The Democratic campaign booth, party booth, whatever. In the midst of these I would say, rather monumental economic, geopolitical, military, social problems that we are facing. I'm looking at it right now. It's right here. There. This is the pamphlet that they were passing out. This is what the Democratic Party is concerned about in today's day and age. I'm going to give it to you right in order. Number one, the most important thing, pride flag bans. Yes. And they're worried about HB 41, which bans non-US government flags from being displayed in K-12 schools. And the fact that it's obviously aimed at gay pride flags. I'd say that's a world-shaking deal, isn't it? Don't you think that should make a difference in all our lives? The second thing that they were really concerned about was school vouchers, because HB 93 allocates $50 million to a school voucher scheme in their pamphlet that siphons money out of the public school systems. In other words, their friends, the teachers unions, who supports all their Democratic campaigns. They forgot to put this in there. So they're worried about gay pride flags at K-12 schools, and K-12 schools not getting enough money because people want to homeschool or go to an alternative school. Terrific. Number three, sex education. Wow, you know this was going to be in there because this is a game changer. This is a world saver, folks. This is what it's all about. Don't you worry about China, BRICS, Nepal, Xi, Putin, Modi, Trump, Venezuela. Don't you worry about any of that stuff. None of that stuff matters. This is what matters. Sex education. HB 239 requires sexual education opt-in. Oh my God. Rather than opt out. Oh my God. Oh, it's the end of the world, folks. Forget everything I've said. Just go out and live your last few minutes and enjoy yourselves. Oh my. And it changes the definition of human sexuality. Okay. And it's aimed, of course, at pushing to end sexual education for young children who need it. And obviously aimed at not teaching transgender and LGBTQ studies. Oh my God, what is this planet coming to? No wonder the end of the world is near. And then finally, they're worried about your money, supposedly. Despite touting savings for families, tax measures in the 2025 session have focused on benefiting top earners, the old communist mantra, right? The proletariat versus the elites, the bourgeois, while reducing community investment. Okay, I guess you get the idea. This is the Democratic Party at work, folks. That's right. In the midst of the fourth term and all the things that are going on, they're worried about whether or not your school gets enough money to fly a gay pride flag. Terrific. I think I'm going to change my party affiliation right this moment. These Democrats got it going on. All right. I will be bringing you another show here. I mean, wow. I will be bringing you another show here, hopefully before I head back from Iowa, which is only a few days from now. And if not, then when I hit the ground running in Wyoming, which will be the first part of next week, in any event, I'm glad to bring you up to speed. Check out the videos on the website. I really, really recommend that you listen to these experts, not just blah, and start thinking outside the box. Because change, folks, is here. It's not a coming. It's here. It's happening right now. Understand it. Plan for it. and deal with it. This is Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take. Keep the wind at your back. We'll talk to you shortly.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.